If you're thinking about getting into photography, there are a few things that you need to get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. Now, before we get started, I do want to say that I know that buying new gear is super fun, but it is by far not the most important thing when you're just starting off in photography. It's much more important to get a lot of practice. Just like with any new hobby, you have to practice and you have to stick with it if you want to see improvement. That being said, there are some pieces of gear that I think are crucial even for beginners, so let's get into it. Alright, so obviously the first thing you're going to need is a camera. Now pretty much any camera being sold today is going to be good enough for you to get started. But if you're on a budget, a good place to start is your smartphone, which you likely already own. Smartphones these days have multiple lenses, they have computational photography, and a lot of them even shoot RAW. So don't discount how far you can go with just a phone. However, if you can afford it, I highly suggest looking into getting an interchangeable lens camera, something like one of these guys. It will be higher cost up front, but there are just some things that you can't do with a smartphone that you need an interchangeable lens camera for. And not to mention, if you plan on shooting any paid gigs, you're not going to want to show up with this guy. You're going to want to show up with something that looks a little more professional. Making specific camera recommendations is out of the scope of this video, but I do want to give you one piece of advice. When you're looking for a brand to go with, be sure to pay special attention to the lenses that are offered. Are there a lot of choices? Are they any good? Are third-party lenses supported? Camera bodies tend to come and go over the years, but people get locked into certain systems because they have so much money invested in lenses. So pay special attention to lenses when you're shopping for your camera body. Assuming that you do go with an interchangeable lens camera, don't feel like you have to go out and buy a whole bunch of lenses from the get-go. If you buy your camera with, say like the kit lens, like an 18-55, then stick with it for a while. See what you do and don't like about it, because it'll really help inform your future lens purchases. If you didn't purchase your camera with the kit lens, or if you feel like you're already outgrowing it, then let's talk about a few options for what you could get next. If you read some of the forums and user groups, then I'm guessing that one of the most popular suggestions for a first real lens is a 24-70 f2.8, which is a fantastic choice because it's super versatile. It covers a lot of the most commonly used focal lengths, but they're really expensive, they're really big and heavy, and in my opinion, they're not very exciting. When I was starting out, instead of putting all of my money into one nice zoom lens, I opted to go for a set of fast prime lenses instead. A wide, a medium, and a telephoto lens. Now obviously, prime lenses are not as convenient as zoom lenses, but they generally are sharper and they typically have much wider apertures than zoom lenses, which means that you'll get better low light performance and you'll get more bokeh. And on top of all that, prime lenses are generally much cheaper than zoom lenses. Prime lenses are great for new photographers. They force you to zoom with your feet and you really have to think about your composition. Even to this day, I really love to challenge myself by going out with a single prime lens to see if I can capture everything with just this. If prime lenses just aren't your thing and you have the budget to go out and buy some nice zoom lenses, then by all means. Zoom lenses are definitely more convenient and they're a must if you plan to go out and shoot any events. Like I said earlier, if you're just getting started, then I suggest not going too crazy buying lenses. As you gain more experience, you'll start to form opinions on what lenses you need to better suit you and your style of shooting. Whether you're shooting on a smartphone or an interchangeable lens camera, you're really going to want to edit your photos to make them stand out amongst the crowd and to really unlock the full potential of your camera. We're really spoiled these days because we can edit on our phones, on iPads, on our laptops, and our desktops, and there are a ton of different apps for us to choose from. I personally use Lightroom and Photoshop because that's what I really know and they're kind of the industry standard. But I've also dabbled with Luminar and Capture One, and those are really good options as well. Whichever editing software you choose, my advice is don't be afraid of it. Practice a lot, do a lot of experimentation. A good place to start is find your favorite photographer and try to emulate their edits yourself. And eventually, you'll develop your own style and your own workflow. Editing is where your images really come to life, and that's why it's probably my favorite step in the entire process. I know tripods are not as sexy as a new camera body or lenses, but they are a necessary evil. I see a lot of new photographers making the same mistake, and I'm guilty of this myself, and that's buying a cheap, flimsy first tripod. A tripod is an essential piece of your kit. It needs to be stable in high winds. It needs to withstand abuse from rain, snow, sand, mud, extreme temperatures, all of those things. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go out and spend thousands of dollars on your first tripod. Actually, I highly suggest not doing that. We're lucky that we live in an age where overseas companies like NRL, Ulanzi, SmallRig, and others are offering really good tripods at very reasonable prices. I'll be completely honest, if you stick with photography long enough, there's a really good chance that you're going to end up with a pile of tripods, because there's not one tripod out there that's the best at doing everything. For example, this big beefy tripod is really good for shooting landscapes on a windy day because it's so incredibly stable. But this thing does not travel as well as this tripod. And neither of those tripods will vlog as well as this tripod. So I think you see my point, right? There are certain tripods that are just better for certain tasks. My suggestion to you, if you're just getting started, is find some kind of middle ground. Don't get a tripod that's too big and beefy because you're not going to take it around with you. Try to get something that's fairly small and lightweight, but not too small. You at least want the tripod to be tall enough that you can get your EVF up to eye level. And if you can afford carbon fiber, I highly recommend it. It's lighter and more rigid than aluminum. Also, just as important, or maybe even more important than the tripod legs themselves, is the ball head. Be sure to pay special attention to the ball head because that's the part of the tripod you're going to be interacting with the most, and it's responsible for keeping your gear in place. First and foremost, make sure that your ball head can support the weight of your camera plus the lens. Now, try to plan for the future here a little bit because you may be shooting on a Micro Four Thirds with a pancake lens today, but in a year from now, who knows, you may be shooting full frame with a 100 to 400 zoom lens, and you want your ball head to be able to support all that weight. My philosophy when choosing a ball head is to definitely lean towards having more load capacity than you think you need. The last thing you want is you're out there doing a long exposure and your camera starts creeping down because the ball head can't support that much weight, or worse yet, your whole rig just comes crashing down. I also suggest that you purchase a ball head that has an integrated Arca Swiss clamp. You could go Manfrotto, but in photography, I find that Arca Swiss is much more ubiquitous and widely supported. If you do pick up an Arca Swiss compatible ball head, then it probably came with an Arca Swiss plate that you can attach to the bottom of your camera. Now, this will work, but it's not the best option because these plates tend to twist loose, and another annoying thing is that once you put them on the bottom of your camera, it doesn't sit flat anymore. The camera always wants to rock on this plate. So a better option is if a company like SmallRig or one of the other companies makes a cage or a plate for your camera, that's a much better option because a lot of these have anti-twisting features, which means that it'll never twist off. And also, they're flat on the bottom, which means that the camera will stand up and not want to tip over all the time. So I highly suggest getting a cage or some kind of plate. As you start acquiring more and more gear, you're going to need a good camera bag. Now, I prefer backpacks for trips and events, and I prefer a sling for things like everyday carry or lighter shooting days. Now for backpacks, I can't say enough good things about this Lowepro ProTactic BP450 AW2. This thing has gone through mud, snow, dirt, everything you could think of, and it still looks practically brand new. Well, except for this dirt over here because I just got back from a trip. but this bag is fantastic. I've tried a bunch of bags throughout the years from people like Peak Design. This one's from PGY Tech, Nomadic, a bunch. And they're all pretty good, but I find myself always going back to the Low Pro. I do want to try that Peter McKinnon 25 liter bag because I did have the 35 liter bag, but that thing was just way too big for me in my use. So I want to try the 25 liter. Maybe I'll switch to that, but I'm kind of doubting it because I love that Low Pro so much. And when it comes to slings, I'm a Peak Design fan all the way. I have a 10 liter and I also have a 3 liter for those days when I'm out doing street photography or just going out with the family. This thing is perfect. I did a whole video about why I like this bag so much. I'll link it up here and down below in the description if you guys want to check it out. You're gonna want to pick yourself up a really nice camera strap, and I highly suggest that you go with the Peak Design quick release system. These Peak Design straps are super high quality. They're very easy to adjust, and I think they look really cool. If you're not familiar with the Peak Design quick release system, that's what these little red and black toggles are that you see on a lot of people's cameras. It allows us to quickly and easily attach a camera strap and release it when we're not using it. Another cool thing is that some third-party brands have now jumped in and started offering camera straps that are Peak Design compatible, like this strap from Clever Supply Co. This strap I've been using with my street setup, and I love it. It works really well, it's comfortable, the leather is super high quality, and I gotta say, it's a beautiful, beautiful strap. I think Peter McKinnon just did a video about these guys recently. All right, let's talk about some other things that I think you need. They're not as exciting as the previous items that I talked about, but I still do think that you need these. So the first thing up are memory cards. Now, you're okay if you only have one memory card, but you should probably have a few as backup. I like to use these SanDisk Extreme Pro memory cards. I've been using these things for years and I've never had one fail, so that's what I stick with. When you're picking memory cards, be sure to get the appropriate speed for what you're trying to do. If you have an A7S III or an A7 IV and you're trying to shoot at the highest bit rates for video, you may need one speed. If you're just taking photos, JPEGs, you'll need a different speed. So pick cards that support the highest speed that you need. Your camera manual will probably have that information for you. Now, the second thing are batteries. Now, just like the SD cards, you can probably get away with one battery for a little bit, but for longer shooting days or events, you're gonna need more batteries. Now, I used to think that third-party batteries were okay, but as I use them more and more and more, I realized that I wasn't getting as much battery life out of them as the OEM batteries. And on top of that, I actually had a bunch of them swell up. And that has never happened to my genuine Sony batteries. So at this point, I think I'm going to change my recommendation about third-party batteries. Granted, I haven't tried any of the new ones that have come out from more reputable companies like SmallRig, but I think at this point in my career, I'm just gonna stick with Sony batteries. They work really well, they have a lot of capacity, and I never have any swelling problems with them. Another thing you're gonna need are some basic cleaning supplies. Now, you don't need anything fancy. I'd say that the bare minimum that you need are probably a brush. The brush is for when you're shooting outdoors in a dusty environment. Sometimes you want to brush your camera off to make sure that when you take your lenses off, all that dust doesn't get on your sensor. If some dust does get on your sensor, that's what the blower is for. You want a nice blower and a lens cloth because it's inevitable. You're gonna get fingerprints on there, or sometimes just using the lens out in the wild, you start to get some kind of film on there, maybe due to humidity or whatever. So basic cleaning supplies, I think will get you a long way. All right, so the last item on the list is not something that I initially planned to talk about, but I wanted to add it because it is a very important piece of my kits, and that is the Apple AirTag. I have one of these in every single camera bag, every single sling. They go everywhere that my camera gear goes. And it just gives me a lot of peace of mind knowing that if my bags ever get stolen or lost, that I can potentially track them. So obviously it's not a must purchase, but as you all start spending a lot more money, potentially thousands of dollars on your new gear, it's a good idea to think about investing in something like this because it could help you track down your gear. Okay, so I've gone through all the things that I think are essential for you to get started in your photography journey. Now, obviously, as you gain more experience, there are going to be other things that you're going to need to buy. So if you'd like me to put together another list for more experienced photographers, drop me a comment down below and let me know. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. If this is your first time visiting my channel, thank you so much for watching. My name is Matt and I make videos about photography, videography, editing, gear, all that good stuff. So if you don't want to miss any of my new videos, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps me out a lot. Again, my name is Matt and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.